that regardless of what a person has done, they are still human and that he is a person. He deserves a fair chance at life to be rehabilitated and to be compensated for what has been done to him. Regardless of what his past life was, they made a mistake. If I made a mistake, then they will deal with me. So I think that they should be dealt with for the mistake that they made, and they should help him to further himself to get to where he needs to be. You can't give my uncle back those 18 years. You can't give him back his father who died while he was incarcerated, and he could not come and see his father. He could not embrace him and show him love at that time. And his father was ill and an older man and not able to come to see him. No one can give my uncle that back. No. There's nothing they can say to replace that, but they can help him to be a better man and guide him and protect him right now.
That's true. But the state doesn't feel they have that responsibility, but the Innocence Project of Florida does, right? Yeah. So
that is absolutely correct. We are truly thankful for all the Innocence Project has done, because not only did they help him, they gave him the mental stability he needed. When he's down and when he was going through a moment, they will be there to coach him and help him through. All people need that. All those people that are incarcerated.
That's true. Even if you went to prison for a crime that you did commit, there is a huge adjustment in coming back regardless. And especially when there is a lot of time that has gone by, as in Derek's case. Well, I thank you, Towanda, for joining me today on the program and sharing your thoughts and perspective from as a family member watching what happened. And I do appreciate your thoughts and your feelings, and I agree with everything that you've said. So thank you once again for joining us today on Pursuing Justice. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye now.
You too. Now that we've spoken to a family member of Derek Williams, and my listeners have gotten a little perspective on how difficult it was for the family, most particularly because Derek was so far away. I didn't realize that he was even farther away at the beginning of his incarceration, and then was moved to Daytona Beach, which is certainly over 3 hours drive from where he lives right now in Bradenton. So how very, very sad to hear Towanda say that he really did not get the visits that he should have gotten, that family members, a parent who was ill, that he could not see them. These are the many, many things that occur while someone is locked up. Again, whether they are guilty or not guilty, these things occur. But it's even sadder when a person should not be in prison in the first place. So in the bit of time remaining today, what I would like to talk a little bit about is the impact of a parent, or it doesn't necessarily have to be a parent. It can be a sibling, can be an uncle or a cousin, anyone who is in prison from the family and suddenly is gone. There are 5 million children in the United States that have a parent currently or previously incarcerated. Half of the people who are in prison at this time are parents. In the 1970s, that number was 350,000 children, that is, who have a parent behind bars. What a tremendous increase that is from 1970s. So what would you think would be the negative impacts of a parent who's locked up? There are many. There's a higher rate of attention deficit disorders. There's a higher rate of behavior problems in school and, of course, at home. There's a higher rate of speech and language delays, a higher rate of asthma, obesity, depression, and anxiety. And there's poverty and homelessness due in large part to a loss of income. Suddenly, the parent who was working is gone, and who knows when they're going to come back. There's instability in terms of where the family lives. Often they move place to place, and sometimes children end up in foster care. So things were stable and reliable, and then all of a sudden everything is upended. There is a risk for trauma or toxic stress. The whole issue of bonding or attachment has a tremendous impact. Again, if a child, say, is very close to a mother, we don't often talk about women in prison, but many, many women in prison are mothers, and suddenly that mother is gone. What happens to the whole issue of bonding? There's guilt on the child's part, thinking, maybe I had something to do with this. Maybe I caused this. So at school, that is a place where a child with a parent in prison has a great deal of shame about admitting that there is a parent gone and that they are in prison. So they very often keep that to themselves and they don't tell anybody. And in a future podcast, I'm going to be inviting a woman and the students in her club. She started a club called POPS, P-O-P-S, Pain of the Prison System. And it was for children. These are not really children. They are high school students. It is for high school students that have someone they love in prison. And it is a safe space to be able to share that secret with other students. So they will be coming on our program to share what they have created in creating this club. And it's beginning to spread across the country thanks to the woman who founded this club. So that's in future. If a child gets in trouble at school, we know sometimes they are punished by being removed from school. And sometimes the cycle of prison begins here, where a child might end up in juvenile detention for a very minor offense. We call this the school to prison pipeline. So that is something to be very aware of, that the cycle can begin with something quite minor. Studies show that the incarceration of a parent is more traumatic than even the death of a parent or even divorce. Now, our previous guest, talked about visiting and how very challenging it is. Even if the prison is not that far away, visiting a parent behind bars is never easy. Prisoners are moved, as we said, from place to place all over the state. The distance can be 500 miles or it can even be over 100 miles. In a visiting room, sometimes there is no air conditioning. It's not very private. It's not very quiet. There's not a place to play, maybe a very small area. And there are machines with sandwiches and drinks. But it's certainly not the same as being together at home. And sometimes the visit is just 2 hours, could be 6 hours, a whole afternoon, a morning and an afternoon. But a small children in a situation like this is very, very challenging. Children worry about so many things, but they don't always give voice to those worries. Will they see the parent again? Why is the parent in prison? Who will take care of me? So there are many, many issues about a parent a family member, I should say, who has been sent away. So what is happening in some prisons in the country is, and there are very, very few of them now, is that they can have a weekend in a trailer together. And that was more widespread years ago. It began in Mississippi in 1918 with married couples only, but now there are what they call family visitation programs in other states. But what's very sad for me to have read about these family visits where they can spend the weekend together is now only 4 states have these programs for families. Wouldn't you think that it would be encouraged to have a trailer. They call it a trailer visit sometimes, and they spend 2 nights together as a family. But unfortunately, money is an issue, and the prison system will say, well, it's just too expensive. But if families stay together with visits, that we know that it helps recidivism, brings down violence in the prison because it's something to look forward to. And wouldn't you think that the prison system would encourage something like this? But they really don't. And I want to close with just a few statistics. 1 in every 9 African-American children have a parent in prison. 1 in every 28 Hispanic children have a parent in prison. And 1 in 57 Caucasian children have a parent in prison. So I hope that I have opened your eyes to the impact of what happens in a family when a key parent goes away. It is a long-lasting kind of impact. It doesn't necessarily end when the parent comes home. As our former guest said, it's a different world that the parent left and a different world that they have come home to. So I hope you will stay tuned, because our next guest for the next podcast is our full-time social worker at the Innocence Project of Florida that really is an angel to many, many of our exonerees. So stay tuned for that. And again, please write me with your thoughts and your ideas and comments at pursuing.justice5@gmail.com. And thanks for spending some time with us today. We really do appreciate it. And I hope you'll join us next time for Pursuing Justice.